Hey Donna, how are you? How's everything?
Hi, Ariel. Good morning. How are you?
Tired, woke up an hour ago at 5 a.m., just so we can teach the Olim what to do. Um, that's how dedicated I am, and
Yeah,
you.
seems it's a good cause though.
So Donna, I hear we're having an amazing topic today that we're going to discuss. Can you tell us about it?
Right. So today I'm going to be talking to you about a very important topic that is, one of the main aspects that influence Aliyah making and Aliyah decision making. When people come to Israel, one of the biggest issues that they have, or biggest aspect that they have to think about, is the education for their kids, right? Baruch Hashem, they come with a lot of different kids at different ages that have to be established and fit into different levels of the educational system. So we're gonna this topic specifically, as opposed to other topics that we've touched upon until now, isn't like purely bureaucracy at the ministerial level, like we've seen, for example, with the Interior Ministry or the Ministry of Absorption and things like that previously, but it rather touches upon bureaucracy in another different level of the system of the Israeli system. We saw as well previously the kind of authorities that we have in Israel that are at different levels. One of them is the municipality, and the municipality is the one that is in charge of practical education processes. Okay, so it does have to do with the ministry itself, but then the registration process and other things we're going to see are under the municipality. So let me share my screen and I'll be able to show you a little presentation that I prepared for you today.
Yeah, 100%. So there are going to be a few videos within this educational series, correct?
Right. We're going to give a general overview about the Israeli educational system. This is something that is very particular to each country, right? Each state has its own policies, its own type of educational institutions, and so on and so forth. And then we're going to be talking about each one of the levels that we see are most important or critical within the system. So preschooling, high school, which is the step before, right before university, one of the most critical ones, and then afterwards universities as well. Um, so let me get started. Right. So, as I was saying, the educational system in Israel. So, the first thing is that at the ministerial level, we have the Ministry of Education. It's the one in charge of the educational policies and overseeing each one of the institutions within the educational realm. And this is both the state institutions, or the public institutions, and the private ones are also overseen by the Ministry of Education. Okay. Then afterwards, something that is very particular to this system is that each school has got its own autonomy to actually implement the policies of the state the way that they see and through different state program like study programs. Another particularity that we have in Israel that is different to other countries and that is important to take into account is the difference that we have between schools that are secular and schools that are more religious, right? There's a very wide range of different types of schools according to religion, okay, and to the religious levels. It's different from abroad because abroad we usually have, especially in Europe, which Jewish communities are smaller, and so they can only offer one or two different types of Jewish schools. Here in Israel, we have the entire range. And so, for example, if abroad we are of a specific religious level, or I would say specific religious character, we can decide once coming to Israel that when we make aliyah, we want to either stay the same or actually move on towards something a little bit more or a little bit less religious than we are. Okay, that's important to know. Now, we're going to go over a few different points that are important to mention. So, first of all, mandatory school is from the age of 3 years old, so that's preschool. Before that, we're going to see later on that you have different options, mostly private options. If you are a mother that is working, for example, or parents that are working, they can leave their children or their babies with some a home care. And then afterwards, at the age of 3, you have what you call GAN, and only from then you continue onwards. You do have the public system, and you do have the private options as well. Okay, usually the academic year is starting in September 1st. It is very recommended for people that are making Aliyah that they do not come very close to that date, because kids need some time to acclimate to Israel, to the system, to going to school in another place, and so on and so forth. So when you plan on making Aliyah, just watch out your dates. And usually the school will end in June 30th, for if you want to start your big vacation after that academic year. Usually over here in Israel, you would have 6 school days a week, but they are short school days. They usually, it's usually up to 35 hours a week. So it makes for kids a long afternoon that is free and that is usually filled in with after school or extracurricular activities. This is something that is very popular in Israel. You do have some after school care as well, where you can leave your kids to have lunch and all these different things. But that is something that is optional, it's not mandatory, and that's up to each family. But just it's important to know that the system here is not the same as in other countries. The hours are not the same. In Europe, for example, you would have school until like 5 p.m. or something like that. And then you would have the kid entirely taken care of for the whole day. And when you come back home, you already have your kids back as well. Over here, you might have your kids getting out of school before you actually finish working, which is something that needs to be taken into account. Okay. Now, there's a concept of education over here that is also different in terms of the strictness that it has. Schools over here are, I would say that the standards and the strictness and also the concept of having homework after school is very different from other countries in the world. So it is important to have your kids, set on a standard that they are used to, even if they don't have to do much homework after school and so on and so forth, but yet keep them surveilled, and watch on them, that they adapt back to the new system, but a little bit with their old concept, so that they can still have, the kind of standard that you are used to and that you want them to have.
Donna, can I ask a couple questions?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, there was a lot said over there. I just wanted to just ask a couple of questions, just so we can figure it out. So in terms of like will you be explaining the difference between the private and the public school systems in Israel later on in separate videos, or are you going to touch on it now?
So we can do a separate video on it. I will have to say that there is no much difference between the private and the public schools, besides the typically different aspects that you usually have everywhere in the world. I will touch upon later on international schools, which are the typically private schools over here in Israel, the fees and everything, and the kind of curriculum that they have. Otherwise, the vast amount of people go to public schools over here in Israel. They are free, as I mentioned later on. That education over here is free. We do have certain fees that I'll cover in a moment, but generally people go to public education, and it is according to your district. So there aren't a lot of private schools in Israel. You would find private ganim, which is preschool care. That would be yes, an option, a more popular option. And just the difference would be that the classrooms or the groups of kids that are taken care of are smaller than in public places.
Okay, I understand. And in terms of the like the hours, so like what are the hours in Israel for students? I know you mentioned it's not like Europe or America. uh,
Right. So usually they would start in the morning, say 7:30 or 8, depending on the on the ages, sorry, on the levels, and they would be finishing around 2, 3 maximum.
oh wow.
Okay?
Okay,
Yeah, it is pretty early. That is why I was mentioning this is an important aspect to take into consideration.
awesome.
Be-
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's continue. I was telling you a little bit about the registration that is according to a district. Usually, when you come to a city, then you will register your kids to that municipality, and then that is where you'll be choosing one of the schools from the different ones that are under that municipality. It is very rare to see that a kid is accepted from one city that lives in one city is accepted in another city's school. Okay, that is also something important, because then you'll be choosing your community and your housing options according to that too. There are several cities that are very popular for Olim, and I'll say later on why they are popular for Olim and why is that a good, a positive influence on schools. Because specifically they go to those schools that are a little bit more adapted for Olim,
Wow,
right?
that's a really fascinating point. I had no idea. I didn't even realize that like that that you that the kids go to school based off of where they live.
Exactly.
It's so that really does play a factor in why people want to move in a certain area.
Exactly. Because
So,
here in Israel, the education is mandatory and is free for everybody, but they want people to, there's limited spots in every school, right? They have to control that too. So they do limit it to each area. You go to your area school, and that way everybody can have their own accessibility to school without any problem of spots. Okay.
uh,
So right, I just mentioned over here a little bit of the grading system and the grading scale for you to have a general knowledge, but you should know that it goes on a hundred, like on over 100 points scaling. So you would have just in general, because I know that in Europe it is different, right? We used to have it on a scale of 10 points, right? So here it's over 100, you would have 95 to 100. That's excellent, and so on and so forth, like you usually know. We do have primary school, we do have middle school, high school, university, and I forgot here actually the pre school. That is also the next video that we're going to go through. I wanted to mention, by the way, the fees that I'm talking about that are not called like scholar fees, but are extra fees. It would usually go up to $500 annually, okay, per kid, which would cover essentially health insurance, PTA's fee, events like, for example, year ceremonies or school trips, extracurricular activities, textbooks, and things like that. Okay, so just for you to budget that in, it's not a very large amount or anything. It still qualifies like free education, but still it's something to take into account.
wow, hold on a minute. So it's just $500 a year?
Something like that. Yeah, it goes up to $500. Each school has got different policies, because
And that's the tuition or that's something else?
that would be the like, so the tuition is free, and these are
Oh,
extra fees that you would have to budget in as a must, let's say, for your kid to be able to participate in all these different things.
wow, fascinating.
Right.